Hey, Tubies, it's Psychic Bob. It is so wonderful to be back with all of you. Well, welcome to Saturday, and it's Spiritualist Saturday. And then we're going to have our little Spiritualist class and a seance today. And I just welcome you. For those of you who are new here, this is kind of our Saturday tradition. We gather and we have a little class. Sometimes I teach from the Spiritualist Manual. Sometimes I teach from a prominent spiritualist book. And today we're going to continue on. We've been doing a series here on becoming a mystical traveler. And this is a book written by Sylvia Browne, one of my favorite psychics, who unfortunately is no longer with us. Well, she's with us in spirit, but she's over in the spirit world. But I love her and I love her writings. And a lot of you have been saying how much you've enjoyed this book. Well, I'm glad to continue doing this study with you and to continue on with this. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna have a little reading. We're gonna talk a little bit about this, and then we'll have our seance. So I want you to pull up your chairs here. We're gonna have a little circle. Put them in a little circle here, and let's sit in a circle. And let's start with this book. If you have this book, you can open it. Today we're starting on chapter 4 on page 49. And this chapter is called Dogma, Dharma, and Karma. I love that. Here it is. Chapter 4. Dogma, Dharma, and Karma. Isn't that great? That's a great name for a chapter. All right, well, let's go ahead and jump in and see what Sylvia has to say. Okay. Sylvia writes, she says, propaganda can be a very powerful tool. Entire governments in Russia and Nazi Germany once used it very effectively, and it's still being utilized in China and North Korea. In the United States, we see how advertising agencies and the media employ it every day. As for so-called journalists, they seem to always follow the old axiom of bad news makes headlines. So a tragic story is like money in the bank. Propaganda works so well because it basically programs the human mind. So you always need to be aware of what types of messages you are receiving, especially when it comes to religion and society. When you're subjected to continual negative programming, it has such an effect on your soul that it can hamper your spiritual growth. Now I'm going to pause there because I think Sylvia's onto something that's very, very important here. And, you know, have you ever known somebody? I've known people who, you know, you go see them and you talk to them. You might meet them on the street, a neighbor perhaps. They say, oh, good morning, Mrs. Jones. How are you doing? And Mrs. Jones says, oh, I don't know. Things are terrible. Did you see about the war going on over in this country or that? And now they're saying it's going to rain and that the day is all ruined. You know that, you know, they're always on a monotonous roll. And it seems to be about everything negative. Well, you know, when I run into people like that, I always think they've been watching too much of the television news. You know, really, because I think a lot of our major media outlets focus on drama and terror and destruction. And you know, Sylvia's right. If you keep listening to all that negativity, it's going to wear you down. It'll affect your soul. So be very careful. She's very right here about guard what you take in. Good point. So she writes here, she says, if you go to a church, synagogue, temple, or mosque, really listen and find out whether your religious leader tends to stress the negative or the positive. If it's the latter, you can take joy in your faith and truly worship God in the way you want. So what she's saying, if it's positive, that's a good thing, okay? But if it's the former, i.e. negative, watch out. Be aware that you're being programmed with negativity, such as bigotry. Sermons should never put down other beliefs or certain practices. The fear of God. Remember that our creators are only loving and merciful. Guilt, and then she has in parentheses, be wary if everyone is called a sinner or unworthy. If you're told that, your soul will not be saved unless you do such and such, or if you're asked for money over and over again, and hypocrisy. And she writes in parentheses, no one dogma or creed is the only way to salvation. Okay, so let's stop there because, I have to tell you as a psychic, I see this every day. Somebody comes into my office or calls me for a reading, and they say, well, Psychic Bob, I was at church on Sunday, and, they told me I'm just hellbound and I'm lost, I'm so evil. And gee, I've spent my whole life praying to God and trying to be close to God, but the pastor says I'm just not making it. You know what I say to that person? I say, you know what? I said, why don't you skip going to church this Sunday and go out in the park? They said, what? I said, yeah. I said, you can be close to God. In fact, closer to God walking in the park, talking to him, than sitting in some church and being beaten up by some pastor. I'm telling you, I really think that, we have so many earthbound souls. Now, I'm going to go on a tangent and preach it here myself, but, I do a lot of haunted house investigations. And what I find many times is that the spirits that are haunting the property are what we call earthbounds. And earthbounds are souls that leave their body, but never transition to the other side. And when I ask them, why don't you go over there to the light? Why don't you go over to God? You know what? Some of them say, oh, I'm not good enough to go over there. God's going to judge me. My pastor told me. The messages that many of these preachers are putting out are scaring people so much that even in death, they do not find peace. I have a real issue with that. And that's why I always say, people that come here to spirituality, you're never going to leave feeling beaten up. I'm not here to control you and to damn you and to drive you into depression. Really, spiritual life should be enriching and enlivening, and that's what I try to bring. So, Sylvia's really right about this. We've got to be very careful what messages we're taking in, especially at our churches, She goes on, she writes, we're on page 50, any religion that isn't magnanimous or tolerant of other belief systems or even other sects of the same faith can be very negative and certainly give you a false sense of what spirituality really is. Protect yourself by paying attention to anything that seems like propaganda trying to brainwash you. Above all, try to keep it simple by here's the formula, by just loving God with all your heart and soul and following the golden rule by doing to others as you would have them do to you. True spirituality is basic and complete, and anyone, hear that word, anyone, can attain it, despite religious traditions and society's tainted preponderance for wealth and power. Woo! Sylvia upset some of the apple carts of churches with this one. But you know what? This so rings true to my soul, and I've always felt this all my life. Even before I discovered Sylvia Browne and her teachings, I always knew that. Like inside, I heard somebody once say that spirituality should be so clear that a child can understand it. And in fact, really, children understand it far better than we adults. Let's look at this again, because there are some real gems in here, okay? She says, try to keep it simple, just by loving God with all your heart and soul. Now, isn't that beautiful? If we try to love God, then we're already on the path, I've had people come to me for a reading and say, oh, Bob, I'll love God when I get my life together. I'll devote myself to God when things get better. You just love God as you are. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have your hair cut right and not be sipping wine. Listen, when God wants to work through a person, especially if they're going to be a mystical traveler, God will take all of that out of your life that you don't need. But he can't do that until you make a connection. So don't worry if you're good enough. You just say, God, I'm here. Work through me. Let me know you, and I want to know you, and you know me. That's really what it's all about. I'm telling you, I am telling you. And she says, and following the golden rule, which is basically do unto others as you would have others do unto you. Now, this is very much a spiritualist teaching. Many times in the spiritualist church, I got the lesson of the golden rule. And it's even in the principles of the spiritualist manual. And it says, as you do unto others, so you will receive likewise. And so there is a balance. This is the karmic principle. If you go out and be hateful and mean, don't be surprised when people come around and are hateful and mean to you. And you never know when a little goodness you do somewhere will come back in an amazing and major way. And this is why I tell people, sometimes I tell people in my readings, I say, people say to me, Bob, I have a neighbor, they rob, cheat, steal, lie, and they have a glamorous life. They have 5 Mercedes, 10 houses, more money than God. And why should I live a spiritual life when all my neighbors are cheating and robbing and living a great life? And I always say, you know what? They might have the appearance of a great life now, but down the road, all of that will end and it will catch up to them. And they'll either be destitute or bereft and have great sorrow. But people who live spiritually, when we have a need in our lives, there's power that comes to us, whether it's to have money to get through the month, whether it's to overcome an illness, whether it's to get that special job. People who live in spiritual light will get blessed. It may not appear it at the time, and the rest of the world may say, oh, you're a fool for believing in God. I abandoned God, my life's so much better. Listen, I don't care if people chuck their churches. In fact, honestly, I think most churches need to go. But don't forget spirit. You know that old saying, don't throw out the baby with the bathwater? Well, that's kind of what we're talking about here. Embrace God, embrace spirituality. You don't have to embrace a church, especially a negative one who tries to control your life and make you feel less than. Don't do that, okay? Anyways, I had to go on a preaching tangent today. I'm just where I am. Okay. Second Bob gets wound up sometimes. Ooh, God, put me in the pulpit, look at it. I used to preach in the spiritualist church. I'd get up in the pulpit. Oh, it was fun. I loved it. Okay. And she says, true spirituality is basic and complete, and anyone can attain it despite religious traditions and society's tainted preponderance for wealth and power. And most churches, I hate to say, are all into the money. Give me money, give me money. Don't buy into all that. Keep your money for yourself. Love God. Give that money to somebody in need. Find a poor person. Now, I'm not saying don't ever give to churches, because honestly, there are a lot of churches that do a lot of good. So I'm not against donating to churches. But I'm saying if you're in a church, though, that's abusive, you keep your money. If you get a church that's trying to get you to sign your house over to them, better run out the door. Don't give up your power to some pastor, to some minister, to anybody. Be within yourself and let your light and your love be connected you to God, not through some church or some minister. So anyways, we're going to stop there because I get on a preaching roll. Ooh, girl. I love me some Sylvia Browne. I do. Anyways, get this book. I'm not being endorsed by Sylvia Browne Corporation, nor am I being endorsed by Hay House, but I got to tell you, it's a great book. Sylvia Browne, Mystical Traveler. We'll continue this next week. Well, now it's time for our Saturday seance. I am a trance channel or a trance medium. Now, trance is spelled Trance. C is in Charles, not trans. I get it every week. Somebody writes this, say, Bob, I had no idea you were a transgender. That's really funny. No, trance, Trance. What that means is I go into a trance state. And when I'm in a semi-conscious, unconscious state, The spirit guides come and take control of my vibration, and they work through my body. And so it's a giving up of control. It's not scary, it's not painful, it's actually a very peaceful process. It's not possession. See, possession is when a low entity comes in and forces their way and takes control. My spirit people don't do that, okay? This is an agreement, a partnership, a sharing of vibration. So I let them work through me. So anyways, I'm going to take down the lights here, and we'll have our seance. Hang here just a minute while I get set up. Now pull your chairs up if you just come in, get here in our circle. We got a little circle here, and be part of our circle. I'll see you in just a bit. Okay, well, I've brought down the lights. I like to do my channeling in a softer light, a more subdued lighting. That's just me. Some mediums do it in broad daylight and on stages with bright shining stage lights. To each their own. If I can, I prefer a softer lit environment. So I'm glad you're here in our circle. Now I'm going to go into trance, and we'll see who comes through. As I always say, I never know what's going to happen. It's always an adventure for me too. So just let's see what the spirit people have. I'll see you when I get back. Oh, this is Fletcher. Give me just a moment while I get control of the medium's vibration. Oh, well, there we go. There seems to be a lot of electricity in the vibration today, and so it may make it a little difficult for us to communicate. But I'll be monitoring and hopefully controlling the electrical flow through the body. Whenever we spirit people come and we take control of a medium's body, we've got to be ever so careful that we don't damage the nervous system. Because when we send our current through, it could literally, if we didn't monitor it, fry them up like a potato crisp. And we don't be wanting that now. Well, I'd be stepping out the body and let the others come through. This is Fletcher. Over and out. Yes, Fletcher, I am in the body. I do hope that those of you gathered can hear me. Occasionally, when we from the spirit world come into a medium's body, we do not get the right vibration, and if the vibration is off, our voices will either boom too loud and cannot be heard, or they'll fade away to a whisper and even become unhearable. Hopefully today we have the right vibration, and I'm trusting that our medium is agreeable in this process. Please understand that we of the spirit world come to visit those of you on earth, not to scare you, not to lecture you, not to taunt you. We come from our world to bring a little light to you, to call you back to remembering who you truly are. Each of you here today come from our world. You are spirits, but you happen to be encased in bodies of flesh. You might think of your physical body as clothing that you're temporarily wearing. At the end of your sojourn on earth, you shall discard your body as if you were taking off old clothes that you were throwing in the laundry. In this case, instead of going in the laundry, they go into the grave or into a crematorium. Nevertheless, your body is temporary. Now, we don't wish to imply that the body is not important, for the physical body is your apparatus, your tool, your vehicle, your protection, or your spirit to live and inhabit the earth realm. The earth realm is of a lower density and a vibration that is very different than that of the spirit world. Do you wonder why children, when they're born, cry so much? It is because the sudden shock to the physical self of coming into a physical world. When an embryo is inside the mother, it is floating in the fluid of the embryonic sac. The baby is at peace. It is as if it is still in the spirit world. And the truth is that the children's spirit are not fully ensconced in the body until the time of birth. A child's spirit will go in and out of the body until the time of birth. At the time of birth, it anchors its spiritual self to its physical self and enters into the world. It is truly the word of truth that it is more difficult to be born than to die. And this is why children cry. Part of it is an awareness that they have had the shock of entering into a physical environment, which is a much denser vibration. When the spirit is enclosed in flesh after being in the spirit world, it has a sudden sense of claustrophobia many times. As you grow, you become accustomed to your body and you forget that you're encased in it. But for those of you who have left your bodies, who have traveled to the spirit world, you know the density of your own physical form and that it is much freer in our world. And so for a child to come into the world, it has the shock of being cramped inside of a body, cramped as I would say, and the shock of the physical vibration of density. For those of you who have forgotten that you come from the spirit world, let me remind you that even though you do not remember our world remembers you. And if we wish to have a greater understanding of the two worlds, call upon the spirit people. Seek us out. We will come to you and abide with you. We will give you lessons to understand who you really are and why you are really here. Each human enters into the earth with a special work that they plan to do. It might be a work of corporal mercy, such as being a nurse or a healer, a doctor, a Reiki master. These are corporal works, and they aid in the spiritual development by honoring the physical self. In the material world, in the earth realm, the physical and the spiritual are closely intertwined. We do not necessarily approve of those who wish to eschew the physical reality. There are those who say, I shall go starve myself and sit on a mountaintop and be without food and clothing, and I will strip away everything. This is not why you come to earth. You come to earth to invest in the physical realm, to indulge in the appetites of the flesh. But we do say in moderation, all things in moderation. So if you enjoy the physical life, such as wearing fine clothing, or going shopping, or driving nice automobiles, those in the spirit world do not fault you for this. In fact, we encourage you to embrace it. It is part of the joy of earthly life, and as such is part of the experience. Many souls, when they return to the spiritual world, wish to bring with them some of their favorite experiences from the earth. And over here know that everything you experience in your world exists here, minus the negativity. So if you have a beautiful car on earth that you love, you can have that beautiful car here in the spirit world. Now, you don't actually need a car to travel, but many people enjoy it as such, and as such it is provided for them. But the difference between the earthly car and the spiritual car is that the spiritual car will never wear out. Its tires do not flatten. It does not rust. The engine does not decay. And there is no pollution associated with it. In your material world, a car will last you perhaps 10 years if you're fortunate. And after that, it is consigned to the junk heap. Not so in the spiritual world. We do not destroy things. If we wish to be rid of something, we might give it to another, or we could dissolve it back into the ethers with our minds. Our minds are the tools that create all things. And this is why we of the spirit world encourage you. Raise your vibration by thinking higher thoughts. Meditate on truer things and higher vibrations. And as you raise your consciousness, you raise your spiritual mind, and you will have more power not only on earth, but when you come back to the spirit world. Fletcher has asked me to step from the body now. So let me leave you with this thought. Try to consider that which you enjoy in life, and rather than turn away from it, thinking it bad and sinful, embrace it from a spiritual perspective. Say, how will this activity, how will this object, how will this experience benefit me in the spirit world? It may be simply that it brings you joy, and that also is an important factor. But please understand that you are here in material bodies. Someday you will discard them and return to the spirit world. Along the way, enjoy yourself, and do not be afraid that you are somehow losing your soul through enjoying life on the earth. My name is Alfred. Oh, there we are. Oh, yes, Fletcher, I've succeeded in moving into the medium's body. Greetings, my dears. This is Rose. Oh, it's such a pleasure to be back with all of you. You know, I was listening to Alfred again, as I often do, and you know, he reminded me of one of the true pleasures of being in the spiritual world, and it is that we do not have to discard those things of the earthly life that we love. But I might add this caveat that you won't necessarily arrive in the spirit world and have everything instantly. No, no, my dears. You have to have earned the right to have these things. You might say, well, Rose, I thought I would come into streets of gold and a glorious mansion. Well, you will, my dear, if that's your destiny and you're supposed to. But I can tell you that there are many people over here in the spirit world who are developing their homes, and they start out with a small little, perhaps a 1 or 2 bedroom home. And they say, well, where's my mansion? You say, your mansion comes when you raise your vibration, that you can create and envision this beauty and have the right to make it manifest. Your power is within, but your power must come from the place of truth and light and honesty. These are the spiritual principles that will help you to advance in the spirit world. But you should not wait, my dears, until you die. You should begin that process now. Every day, take a reflection of your life. Think about where you've come from and where you're going to. Celebrate your successes and grieve your losses. Only by fully engaging in the material world and understanding your role in it and your position can you develop your spiritual faculties that you might create a mansion in heaven. There is a saying that many of you spiritualists say, and my neighbor Madge used to say it, as above, so below, as below, so above. And what that means, my dear, is that everything on your earth is a reflection of the things in the spirit world, and everything in the spirit world is reflected upon the earth. The 2 worlds share a commonality, and if you will consider that, you will understand your place in the cosmos. Many people think that when you die, you instantly go to high mansions of heaven as an angel or in great glory. But my dears, I can tell you that is not so. There are souls who are prepared for that and do so. But the most, excuse me, my dears, the medium's having some physical discomfort. Fletcher, will you get control of the medium, please? Oh, there we go. This is Fletcher. Give us just a moment. The electrical current going through him is a little strong, and it's offsetting his nervous system. Oh, there we go. Thank you, Fletcher. You see, this is what Alfred was saying. The medium's vibration must be in harmony, or it can offset a whole lot of things. But as I was saying, you see, in the spirit world, you must prepare yourself to receive that mansion of glory, and you do so by starting on the earth with kind thoughts, generosity, and friendship and love towards all. If you practice this in your earthly life, you will raise your vibration so that when you do come over to our world, to the spirit world, all things that are beautiful and good will be in harmony with your very nature, and you will be able to create them at will. The things that we do here, we do through our spirit minds. And some say, well, can your mind really create a home? Yes, it can, my dear. If you develop your faculty of imagination, that involves visualization within yourself, and you think of good things, then you will create good things in your own life on earth, and that very power will travel with you to the spirit world. So therefore, my dears, think of beautiful things, think of light, think of love, think of beautiful music. Do not pollute your mind with hateful words and vindictive attitudes and spiritual spitefulness. No, my dears, love is the reigning principle in the spirit world. So let yourselves be in love. Love yourself, love those around you, love God, and you will attain the light and the beautiful streets of gold and mansions of glory. Fletcher's saying our medium's power is waning, so we shall not tax his body anymore. But let us say here, my dear, that we send you our dearest greetings from the spirit world, and do take the time to call upon us. Say, Rose, come and help me, and I shall be there. Call upon Alfred. Let us be part of your world. And if you don't have a spirit guide, ask us and we will bring one to you. We shall be further in touch with you in the coming days, my dears, as you reach out to us. Oh dear, the power is starting to fade, and Fletcher says I must step from our medium's body. But I do thank you for allowing me to be here, and I do hope that you will continue to seek out that which is good and know that the spirit will. I tell you, Tubies, I love having the chance to channel. It just uplifts my soul. And I'm so thankful for all of you being here today. Listen, if you've enjoyed this and want to learn more about my work as a psychic and a medium, you might want to check out my website, psychicbob.com. I've got some wonderful books over there. Messages from Rose. This is my book about working with my spirit guide, Rose. We have other books. This is one of them. I've got Ouija Mysteries, the Spirit Board Seances, Psychic Bob's Book of Wiccan Wisdom, Psychic Bob's Book of Spells, all of this and more over at my website, psychicbob.com. I'd love to have you check that out. I think you'll enjoy this. But thank you for being here today. You know, also want to say thank you to all of you who came out to yesterday's video. We had such a fun time. We talked about UFOs. And I showed you my new crystal bowl that I got at Neiman Marcus. And so definitely check out the video before this one as well if you haven't seen it. But you guys are the best. I so enjoy being here and reading with you and channeling with you and just connecting. And if you want to get on my schedule for a private reading, give me a call, 703-825-3929. That's my phone number. The link will be below. Or visit my website, www.psychicbob.com. I look forward to hearing from you. Listen, help me out. Like this video, favorite it, thumbs up, share it with your friends, and hit that subscribe button and hit the bell and be part of our scene here at Spirit Channel. You guys are best. I love you. Sending blessings to all of you. And I look forward to being back here. Be back here tomorrow and Sunday. Hopefully, we'll see. We may have the witching hour at 8 p.m. Eastern. If we don't, it's because of technical problems, but we're working on that. Just show up here and hopefully we'll have a show. Okay, it's the best I can tell you. But I'm so glad you guys are here. I love you. We'll see you back here hopefully tomorrow. Till then, may you all always blessed be.